Are you thinking of selling your home in Calgary? Are you at the early stages of this process and considering interviewing a few agents for the job? There are definitely a bunch of questions you should be asking the realtor, and in turn there are a bunch of questions the realtor should be asking you as well to make sure this process goes as smoothly as possible. My name is Ryan Gillard with Real Broker, your Calgary realtor, and this video is all about which questions you should be asking the realtor so you pick the right one and the transaction goes as smoothly as possible. If you are watching this video and you could use some help, feel free to reach out. All of my information is in the written description below. You can call, text, email, comment, and even check out my website. Happy to help you out. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's get into it here. Again, this video is all about what questions you should be asking a listing agent so that you don't waste your time or the agent's time, and hopefully you can have a smooth transaction. So the first point here is how to prepare your home for sale. It's quite common that people that I know will ask me to come over to their home and have a quick once over and let them know my thoughts about what they can do to get the home ready for sale. And it could be common sense stuff like cleaning, decluttering, staging, any kind of repairs that they know about, or maybe it's finishing a basement. There's a long laundry list of items that could be done to help this home get ready for sale. And if you are curious, I have a more detailed video specifically on this topic, which you can find right here. And point number 2, how long will the listing appointment take? Now, I mention this because I go on lots of different appointments where the seller is interviewing many agents, and sometimes they tell me, oh my goodness, that last agent was here for like 2 hours. Now, you don't want that. Most sellers, all they care about is what is the sales price likely to be, how long will it take to sell the home, what are the costs involved, and what is your marketing plan. It should take like 20 minutes, give or take. So that's why I mentioned it shouldn't take 2 hours. It should be nice and brief and right to the point. And point number 3, do you work full time? So this is a big one for me. Like, this job is hard enough as it is as a full-time agent. I think it would be near impossible if you were part-time, and it'd just be too difficult. So if I was a seller, I wouldn't consider anybody that worked part-time. It would just too difficult. There's lots of different deadlines in real estate, and if they're not answering their phone because they're working somewhere else, it would just cause so many issues. So again, I would only hire someone that does it full-time. And point number 4, what are the costs involved in selling real estate? A lot of sellers will focus primarily on the real estate commissions, which is fair. It is a big chunk of the costs involved, but there are other things as well, such as bank payout penalties. Again, there's real estate commissions, costs for like a real property report, gathering condo documents, legal fees. There might be issues that pop up during a home inspection that need to be addressed. So there are multiple costs that are involved during this entire process, and I have a more detailed video specifically on this topic as well, the costs involved in real estate, which you can find right here. And point number 5, do you normally handle buyers or sellers? And if you do both, what are your percentages? So I've been licensed for about 10 years now, and I'd say my averages are probably about 60 to 70% of my sales are listings, the rest are buyers. But some agents are like 95% buyers only. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you are thinking of selling your home, would you prefer to have someone that's doing a lot of listing sales or someone that's doing them occasionally? So it could be very important. There's more that can go wrong as a listing agent. There's more responsibility. It's more difficult. You got to manage everything. And it's quite a bit easier to be a buyer's agent. If you show enough homes, you can just fill out a purchase contract. It's just a lot easier. So you have to make sure you're hiring someone that's willing to take on the load to sell a home, especially if the market's like in a down market or more balanced conditions. It's way harder. And there's more responsibility, there's more headache, especially the home is not selling. So you have to make sure you're hiring someone that's well equipped to sell homes versus just on the buying end. And point number 6, have you sold homes in this area or are you familiar with the area? So Calgary covers a huge area. So we have the inner city and we have 4 quadrants surrounding it, and they're all fairly unique. Again, it covers a huge area. And some agents will just focus on one quadrant, like they're a northwest agent, or some will be a southeast agent, and they might not venture too far away from those areas. And then you'll have people like myself. I've lived in all 4 quadrants at one point in my life, so I sell all over the city, and it doesn't bother me at all. I'm very familiar with all parts of Calgary, but not all agents are like that. So if you have like a Tuscany home that you want to sell, and you're talking to someone that primarily does southeast Calgary, you might have some issues. And one thing to mention about Calgary neighborhoods is that many of them will have micro regions. So if we take Willow Park, for example, there are pockets that back onto the golf course that are super expensive. There are areas of it that are like above average, and there are areas that are almost like below average or very typical. And I can recall when I was a newer agent, I was trying to list a home there, and I was analyzing one home, but I was comparing it to homes that were in different pockets of the area. and it'll throw your numbers off. So sometimes sellers will ask questions like this, which are very important. Are you familiar with the area? Because a lot of our neighborhoods have these different regions like that'll throw your numbers off, and you want to make sure you give the seller the right evaluation estimate. Point number 7, and I could have mentioned this earlier, is how long have you been in the business? Now, time is not the only factor to look at when interviewing agents. I think it's important, but not the only factor, because you could have an agent that's licensed for 20 years and they sell 1 home per year. Not that great. Or you could have like a brand new agent that sold 30 in their first year. Is a lot better. But for the most part, I think it does matter because our market goes in cycles. So right now is July 22nd, 2023. There's no inventory. It's very easy to sell homes. But we went through like a nasty recession in Calgary for like a 5-year recession. So what will this agent do when there's like a year's worth of inventory versus 1 month of supply like we have right now? So I think experience does matter. And if you had 2 agents, they had the exact same price, the same marketing plan. One's got 2 years in the business, one has 10 years. I would go with the person with 10 years just because they've seen more stuff. They've seen more weird terms. They've seen deals fall apart and how to salvage some deals. Lots of stuff can go wrong in real estate, and they've had more experience dealing with that. So I think my preference would be going with someone with more experience. Point number 8, you could ask, how many homes have you sold this year? People ask me that quite often. Point number 9, how many listings do you currently have? And are you able to take on more? Now, nobody has ever asked me it that way, but again, there are lots of part-time agents. There are lots of people who are like semi-retired, and maybe they can take on more listings. So it's a good question to ask them. I can tell you, I'm always ready to take on more listings. I can manage like 100 of them. So for me, it's no problem at all. But again, not everyone works full-time. So it's one question that you might want to ask. And point number 10, what is the average days on the market to sell a home in Calgary and in the specific neighborhood that you're in? This is a great question to ask a listing agent. Again, it's one of the 4 main points that you should cover, which again are the price, the commission, the marketing plan, and how long it should take. And right now in Calgary for a detached home, the number is about 20 days. And that includes the pending period, which is like usually 10 days for like financing, home inspection, stuff like that. So homes in Calgary are selling very quickly at the moment. And point number 11, what is the current list to sales price ratio in Calgary? This is a great number to know as a listing agent. So this is the ratio, if we have a list price of 400,000 and a sale price of say 395. That's the ratio that we're talking about here. At the moment in Calgary, the number is actually 101% of list price. So what that means is that sellers are currently getting over list price offers. That's a bit of an anomaly. We're still in pretty tight seller's market conditions. I'd say historically the number has been about 97% of list price. So even historically, the number, it's a pretty tight market in Calgary. The prices aren't like drastically lower than the list price on average. So when I'm out there meeting with a seller, how it usually will go is I'll give them the list price and then the expected sales price based on the current ratios. And then based off that sales price, we'll calculate the commission. I'll go over that with the seller. We'll go over the average days on the market in their specific area. And then I'll go over the marketing plan. So that's typically how a listing appointment should go. It shouldn't take 2 hours like I mentioned earlier. It should be like right to the point and based off the data. And point number 12, you could ask the listing agent how many of their homes have expired in the past year. Right now, again, we're in very favorable seller's market conditions. And if this agent has a lot of listings that are accumulating and they're expiring, that could be a red flag that something wrong is going on because it's actually quite easy to sell homes at the moment. And point number 13, this is a very big one. What is your communication style like? So the biggest complaint in real estate is that somebody lists a property for sale and then they vanish and the seller never hears from them. That's one of the biggest complaints in real estate. So for me, I make it my focus. At least once a week, you'll hear from me. Usually Friday is my update day. But yeah, you'll constantly get calls, texts, or emails. I ask sellers what they prefer, but that is the biggest complaint in real estate is the lack of communication. So I would definitely put this star beside this one and ask any potential listing agent how they communicate with you and give you updates and stuff like that. All right, so the next point here, let's move into marketing. And one question I would definitely ask is how will you price my property? Now, price is obviously one of the biggest factors when meeting with a listing agent. And a lot of sellers will base it off some weird things. Like if I sell it at this price, then I can do this afterwards. Or I bought it for this price, so I want this. They'll just base it off kind of what they want, not based off of like the real data. So if I'm talking to a seller and I'm trying to price their property, I will first look at what is active on the market and I'll keep that in the back of my mind. and then I'll pull up what is very similar to their home, like the same style, like apples to apples. If it's a 2-story home, you just look other 2 stories. And I'll look at what they have sold for, and I'll look at what is conditionally sold as well. And then I'll have a number in my head, and then I'll go back to what is actively on the market and try to position it properly. If you do this right, especially in this market, I've seen some crazy returns for sellers. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Copperfield showing just a very generic 2-story home, like 1,300 square feet, no garage, unfinished basement. I think it was listed for like $440, and just a very generic home. And there were 30 offers on this property, and it sold for like $130,000 over list price. It was ridiculous. But if this seller had overpriced their home to begin with, it would still be on the market, and they'd probably get less in the end. So where you position the property and how you do it, it can make all the difference, especially in this type of market. But even in a bad market, if you do this wrong, you can just delay the process for months and take less money in the end. So it's always great to price it kind of where it should be, based off what has sold recently and what is currently on the market that you're competing against. Point number 15, where will the listing be featured? So this is a great question that lots of sellers are asking me. So the first things first, if I list a property for sale, it'll go onto Realtor.ca, which is the main website buyers are using across Canada to view properties. I'm not unique here. Every listing agent should be doing this. So it'll go onto Realtor.ca. It'll go onto my own website. It'll go onto my company's website. And we have this thing called syndication, where if I list a property for sale, any other agent is allowed to list that property on their own website as well. So there will be no shortage of websites having your listing on it. So no lack of exposure there. Other things that I do in addition to that is I run Google ads. I'll have like YouTube shorts, like I'll do like a quick little 1-minute tour of the home on YouTube. My goal is to do a community tour of the neighborhood itself every time I take a new listing. So if I take like an Altador listing, I'll do the YouTube short, and I'll also do that whole neighborhood guide on my website as well, and on YouTube. And the last thing that I do here is I run ads on both Facebook and Instagram. I boost listings, and you get thousands of views when you do this. So it does add extra exposure when you run ads as well. And point number 16, do you hire a professional to do photos, the eye guide, and measurements? And the answer is yes. And you'd be shocked at how poor some of the photos are online. So not all agents are doing this, so it's one question to ask for sure. So I will hire a professional for photos. I can do measurements myself, but lately I've been hiring a professional. I do the eye guide as well, which is the virtual walkthrough, and it does make a big difference. And point number 17, do you hold open houses? Now this one is not as important as the other questions. Homes will sell regardless if there's an open house or not. If somebody wants to get into the property, they will find a way in regardless if there's an open house or not. I think open houses were more important during the days before the internet, but nowadays with the virtual walkthroughs, and it's so easy to view a property that I don't think open houses matter all that much. It's not my favorite form of prospecting, and that's exactly what it is. They're usually designed for the agent to meet new buyers and sellers for other properties. Occasionally, a property does sell from an open house, but I'd say it is pretty rare, and mostly it's for the agent to meet new prospects. All right, let's switch it up now, and let's talk about some of the questions the listing agent should be asking the seller. Now, why is this important? First of all, I don't want to waste my time or the seller's time, but it's more than that. It gives the seller a clue who is professional and who isn't, and who means business and who doesn't. A lot of agents will just show up at a listing and just wing it. They won't ask any questions at all, nothing in advance, and they'll just show up there and see how it goes, basically. Like, you would never go to a doctor and expect them to wing it. They'll ask you a bunch of questions, they'll pre-qualify you to make sure that they're doing the right thing for you, basically. And selling real estate should be no different. It's a big transaction, lots of moving parts, and the listing agent should be grilling the seller as well to make sure they can do the best job for them. So on my desk, I've always got my pre-qualification questions that I'll go through with the seller. And I've got it laminated, it's easy access. And I'll just quickly go through some of the questions here. So number 1, if I sold your home, where would you move to next? Obviously, they need to know stuff like this. Otherwise, they're probably too early into the process to be meeting with an agent. How soon do you have to be there? Now, I might test them on this. If they don't really know or they're a bit wishy-washy, I'll say, if I sold your home within 30 days, would that cause a problem for you? A good question to ask. Are you planning to interview more than one agent for the job? I just kind of test people out. I want to kind of see what they say to that. I assume everyone's interviewing many agents. How much do you want to list your property for? Now this can backfire sometimes because they might say, oh, you're the agent, you should tell me. But I kind of want to know what they're thinking as well. And what they say, it doesn't matter to me at all. I'll still give them exactly what I think it should sell for based off my my data. But I kind of want to know where they're at to see if they're unreasonable or not. What price won't you go below? Now, they might not tell you this, but still, it's a good idea to ask. If it's extremely tight, it might not be possible as well. How much do you owe on the property? Another good question to ask. This is more of an issue during like a buyer's market or a balanced conditions. Right now, there's so much equity in our market, it's not a big of a problem. But it used to be like in, say, 2016, 2017, it was a huge issue. And along those lines, you might want to ask, is there a bank payout penalty? Do you know how much it is? Have you checked with the bank? Because sometimes it could be like just 3 months of interest, and sometimes it could be massive. So it's a good question to ask that they should know. Next up, could you describe the home for me? Is there anything that could change the price up or down? Are there any recent renovations? Just stuff along those lines to kind of figure out what they've done to the property. Do they know of any issues that could affect the price? Another big question here, is there anyone else involved in the decision besides yourself? And will they be there on the listing appointment? It sucks if you show up at someone's house at like 7 o'clock at night and maybe the wife is home but the husband isn't, or vice versa. You're not taking that listing and you wasted your time and their time. So you want to have all decision makers present if possible. And the next one here, do you have any questions for me before I arrive? I kind of want to know what they're thinking. Usually is it, how much do you charge? How long is the listing contract? Stuff like that. At this point, I will tell them our appointment should take like 15 to 20 minutes. Is that a comfortable time for you? And the last thing that I'll go over with the seller on the phone here is my pre-listing package process. So a day before our actual appointment, I will courier over a document or a package to them, which will have information about myself, company, background, some of the homes that are on the market that are similar, some homes that have sold, conditionally sold properties, a listing contract itself, just so they can digest all of the information. And then on the actual listing appointment, it's usually a much easier process for everybody involved. All right, so that's my process in a nutshell. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you are thinking of selling your home, I would love to help you out or be interviewed for the job. My information is all in the written description below. You can call, text, email, comment, or even check out my website. Again, I'd love to help you out. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.